Hello everyone, and welcome to the Unlearning Talk series of the Start Create Cultural Change event. The Unlearning Talks is a series of talks on resilience and sustainability in the sociocultural sector with a focus on Southeastern Europe. My name is Maria Luisa Laupodi. I'm speaking to you from Thessaloniki in Greece, and I will be your host for this online event. The event is part of the START program. START is a capacity building and fellowship program for aspiring cultural managers from Greece. The program supports creative minds who wish to kickstart cultural initiatives that generate a positive social impact on their local communities. This year, the START program has again supported 30 cultural managers from Greece by offering a professional placement in 30 different sociocultural centers in Germany. 15 of those cultural managers have moved forward, and with the program support, they have implemented their cultural initiatives in 9 cities around Greece until June 2020. I would like to take you through this journey with a short video we have prepared. The START program is coming to a conclusion this year. And while thinking how we would like to conclude, we understood that a lot of the work that had been developed in the projects we supported could be relevant to other areas in our region. And similarly, other projects could have a lot to share with our community. So we designed this series of talks to spread beyond Greece and Germany and in the Southeastern European space, as very often challenges remain the same when working towards sustainable cultural interventions. The Unlearning talks evolve around 3 thematic cycles. Cycle 1, coping with emerging crises, challenges and trends. Cycle 2, resilient models of sociocultural entrepreneurship. And Cycle 3, building new collaborative methods of cooperation and networks. Each cycle spans over 3 days, from Tuesday to Thursday every week. And every day there is a different topic and a very rich and diverse lineup of speakers from Southeastern Europe. For more information, you can visit the startgreece.net website. You as an audience can ask them any question you wish by downloading the Slido app, either on Google Play or the App Store. The event code on Slido is #13006. So let me take you through the program. Today's talk is part of the second cycle and is entitled Achieving Social Impact Part 2, an Outlook in the Periphery of Southeastern Europe. Action at the regional level is a vital lever for achieving social impact in the countries of Southeastern Europe. Communities in the periphery of our region address specific challenges with different constraints and different levels of scalability in their impact. At the same time, change in the outskirts of Europe, and not only, can be achieved with less resources and a lot of imagination. A number of regional initiatives will be presented during this talk that created an unorthodox solution mix for their challenges. Before we go into more details, I would like to welcome our international sign language translator, Apostolis Margaritidis. The shift to online events offers the possibility to more people from different locations to access the content. In our effort to be as inclusive as possible, we believe that offering such interpretation can widen the audience and the dialogue for cultural development. We will start with the presentations of the 5 speakers and then continue to the Q&A. This part of the Q&A is participatory by design, as you, the audience, can join us by sending your questions and comments. And moving forward, I would like to welcome the speakers of the fifth Unlearning talk. Yanina Taneva from Ideas Factory in Bulgaria, Rania Mavriki from Kultopia in Greece, Greg Haji Joannides from Nisyrio in Greece, Matti Kunstek from Nellie, Nashorn in Germany, and Diana Malaj from Atta Group in Albania. Welcome to all of you, and great to have such a varied and diverse lineup of speakers today. So let's start with the first speaker, Yanina Taneva from Bulgaria. She is the founder of the Ideas Factory in Sofia, an organization serving as an ecosystem catalyst for socially adequate and innovative solutions by connecting in a new frame challenges, creatives, and authorities, and thus long-lasting innovative solutions to old problems in cities and rural areas. Yanina is a great believer in the power of unleashed spontaneity, and this is mainly what she and her team are creating in their environment. She will tell us what Ideas Factory is and does in rural areas in Bulgaria and beyond. Dear Yanina, the floor is yours.
Hello. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the invitation to start, and Goethe-Institut for the chance to talk about the cultural participation in southeast of Europe, and especially the Balkans and Bulgaria. I am here to talk about the Balkans, but many of the things you hear probably also are relevant to many other countries in the south of Europe. So the Balkan history is interesting because a village or a rural area was always a synonymous of autonomy, kind of autonomy which was economical, and also freedom, quite big freedom of movement. With industrialization starting in the 50s, of course, the dynamic between center and periphery changed. It's a soft way to say that actually vast depopulation processes have started. Already in the 70s in Bulgaria, we were seeing vast areas that were losing really the big majority of young people. Today, the Balkans are, with the low density of population, a really big demographic crisis where most of the young people are not at home, so they cannot really contribute to the regeneration of rural areas. And at the same time, there are no policies to bring them back. I just want to take you for a short to have a sense what it is like to be between the last inhabitants of a village in the south of Bulgaria. So just for a minute, you'll see a video. As you can see, and probably some of you know this reality, it is really has a fast-paced depopulation. So we, coming from this reality, we decided 5 years ago that we need to dig deeper into this problem and those challenges and understand the complexity behind it. The more and more we were digging deeper, we understood that there are many problems connected to it, but Demography is the elephant in the room. There are no young people in the rural areas in the Balkans. In southeast of Europe, probably if you live in a rural area, the probability you are living under the poverty line is more than 60%. And there are many other challenges like access to culture, access to education, access to healthcare, which are more or less geographically determined civil rights. So in Bulgaria, and it's interesting, in Bulgaria and Serbia, only between 6 and 8% of the rural population have been attending any kind of cultural event in the last 12 months. Unfortunately, there is no any policy or strategy how to combat this on a national level. Even the European strategies are also not working quite well locally, unfortunately. So this is where we decided to found Baba Residence, the residency program in a search of a new rural narrative. What we try to do is to understand how to change this very radical truth of depopulation, what means to change it, to change the course of really, really big systemic trends. So we are using human-centered design approach, which means we work with the people. Our residents are living for 1 month in elderly people homes. Most of the residents are creatives or artists, and their main question is how can we contribute to a common goods, new understanding of common goods in a village, in a rural area. So more or less what we are an action research project and a process-oriented idea. And we had to give up many of our beliefs that were in the beginning in order to really keep learning. Many of our unlearning treasures have been found thanks to the local people, and I think maybe the main lesson that we've learned is never go with a ready idea, but always go with a humble attitude and co-create together. So I'm sorry, I'm trying to move the slides. And here is where we come to the very controversial concept of impact, I think. We are working with people, with humans, and as you can see also in this photo and in many other moments that are not photographed, we enable the meeting between young urban people and elderly that are living very much alone, and they appreciate very much the time that someone spends with them. How could we measure this kind of impact? It's a very hard question, and I'm very much an opposer of this idea of transferring the business language into our work, because we have much more of a quality change and behavioral changes that are going into the in the quality than rather than quantitative measures. If you ask me how many villages and regions, you can see the numbers on that slide. We are right now in 16 villages in 5 regions in Bulgaria. I just want to finish notion that building resilience in societies is quite urgent. We really don't know where this world is going and is heading. What we know is that what was until now is not working anymore. We need a new model of society. What we try to do is trying to pick up those working small elements of the puzzle and try to combine what works for us from the contemporary life, but what really needs to be preserved, and to work together for a future that we would like to imagine ourselves being part of. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Janina. I think your video actually reminded me of images also in the north of Greece. It's not unknown to us that the rural areas in the periphery is getting emptier every year, all the more, let's say. So I'm sure that we're going to have quite an interesting Q&A later in the talk. Thank you very much. It looks like a real factor of ideas, if I may say. Let me now invite the next speaker from Greece, Rania Mavriki, who is the co-founder of Kultopia, a social cooperative enterprise that offers a complete spectrum of cultural management services while it develops its own own sociocultural work, focusing areas. She is an alumna of the START program, and she lives and works in Athens, and she will present to us how Kultopia, among others, operates in rural areas. Let us hear from Rania.
Hello. Thank you, Maria Luisa, for the introduction, and thank you for the invitation. I will try to be quick in my 5 minutes and take advantage of them the best way I can. So I'm here representing Kultopia, as Maria Luisa said. What would Kultopia be in one sentence? I will quote, we are here to support the living artist, meaning that we mostly focus on contemporary culture and diffuse art's intrinsic value, meaning the value that art has in itself. I will come to this point later, to the most diverse audience ever. I have made a very simplistic, let's say, graph of the business model that we use in order to point out some things. So our main and bigger activity is the cultural management services. We mainly offer production management, communication, and curation. And through these services, we really work on the field of the artistic and cultural field in Greece. And through this work, we can map the social gaps and develop good reflexes in order to understand what is missing socially, who is not represented, where art reaches its most elitist, let's say, spectrum, and where not. And all this knowledge we can then implement in our sociocultural project, which is a smaller activity, let's say, right now in Kultopia, which from last year we decided that we will implement only in the Greek periphery. To give you an example of such a sociocultural project, I will go through our latest project, which is called Actes. It's developed in collaboration with Common, an NGO also based in Greece. And it's a very simple concept. It's cycles of artistic residencies in isolated Greek islands, specifically during the winter time where the cultural offer is very low. And it's a process where the children delve into the artistic process of an artist. And all this process ends up in a presentation that is curated by the children, where they present the artist to the whole community. For this year, the project is designed for Aistratis Island in collaboration with the municipality, the local school, and with the support of the Hellenic Ministry of Culture. But I wouldn't want to go deeply through only one project, but since this is a part of the Unlearning talks, I would like to share with you two key findings, or what I like to say, two conversation starters of what we had to learn in those, let's say, 3 years of experience. Number one, people in the periphery don't need activities. They need tools to use for themselves. Cassie, my colleague, and I often say that we would like to plant a small cultural manager into each village and each isolated place in Greece, because we understood from our experience that it's not about bringing a festival to an island or bringing them a series of workshops, but it's really about giving them the tools so that they create the cultural offer that they crave for. And this is also connected to the sustainability, both of the initiative, but also of the local society, that it's better for them to use the local resources that they have and just use them in another way, together with the tools, in order to achieve sustainability. The second point that I would want to make, which is a bit more complex, but in my opinion, the most interesting one, is the distinction between art's intrinsic and instrumental value. we have observed that there is this growing tendency of talking more and more to institutions and funders that our projects want to have on board about the instrumental value of the arts rather than creating narrations highlighting its intrinsic value. Some examples of the instrumental value of arts could be, for example, a project's contribution to the local or national GDP, or the number of jobs created, or the number of people participating in an activity. Of course, there is no really problem with that. I mean, no one would argue that these are good causes. So where is the problem? The interesting thing is that what I'm going to say is said from former financial analysts and banking executives, such as Hallgeir Isdal, who is a Norwegian former financial analyst, who points out that the problem with this narration is that there is a danger that there will always be a possibility that something different from art can provide the same instrumental value at a significant lower cost. So I would point out that I think that it's time that we should reinvent our tools to keep the arts and their social aspect really alive and meaningful, and not in a way as cultural managers get lost in this market game. Of course, I'm not saying that we should exclude those measures, but they should not, by all means, be at the core of our narration when we have a dialogue with institutions and funders. That was it. Stop. Thank you for your time, and I'm looking forward to the discussion that will follow. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rania. You have actually touched upon a very important, I guess, topic, which is fundamental to the way we work or the way we see our sector growing, and how, to my opinion, it operates cross-sectoral, because the metric system is a massive issue for funding and sustainability. We will get back to that in the Q&A, I'm sure. I will continue with the presentation now of the next speaker, Greg Haji. Greg is a visual artist that lives and works in the small island of Nisyrio in Greece. He's the founder and artistic director of Sterna Art Project since 2014, an art residency and exhibition program running in the island. He's going to present to us Nisyrio, a platform to keep waste within the island and make it sustainable through cultural activities, including workshops, visual and applied arts, new architectural material, and design. Greg, our virtual floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much, Maria Luisa. Hello, everyone from Nisyrio, this small volcanic island of 900 inhabitants in Southeast Aegean. Nisyrio was initiated almost a year ago because of a problem. In Nisyrio, there is no drinkable water, so we all consume bottled water, and then we have the issue of how to handle the plastic waste. It's been years that some of us have been talking on the issue, and it was 8 of us that we put the idea together to find the way to create the mechanism to handle the plastic waste. Our approach, being most of us creatives, our approach is to do it through creative practices. And then the issue is how to change the problem into a positive aspect. We focused on the members of the society, that they were sharing the same need. So we actually Spotified, we knew the problem, we Spotified the need, and we started working on it by creating the mechanism to handle the plastic waste. However, it is what Rania said before perfectly, that in the periphery, it is mainly about providing the tools to the society in order to do it itself. At the same time, we understood that some locals, they are actually the most important resources in order to establish Nisyrio and to sustain it. I would like to add to that also the number of the society, meaning that a society of 900 people, it makes it realistic to achieve or to sustain the project. I must say that already in the few months that we are active through workshops, etc., bringing the people in, we have managed to engage half of the island in our activities. I think that's all I would like to say, and we will say more after in the Q&A. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Greg. I believe there is a lot to say, actually, because probably you have found something very interesting on how to engage half an island, no matter how small it is. I mean, 450 people are a crowd. So I am sure we will have quite a few questions from our audience as we go along. Thank you for your presentation. And let me move on to introduce to you the next speaker from Germany, which is not, of course, part of Southeast Europe per se, but the organization Nellie Nashorn is in the borders with 2 other countries and the periphery of Germany. So his input is valuable both in terms of regional issues and sociocultural approach. So I would like to welcome Matti Kunstek, who is involved in cultural creation for more than 20 years now. Socioculture, participatory and democratic approaches to culture are one of his main points of interest. And he's been steering cultural projects to success and quality and proved in a variety of institutions and enterprises of different sizes. He will present to us what Nellie Nashorn is all about. Matti, we're looking forward to your presentation.
Yes, hello everybody, and thanks for the introduction, Maria. Yes, like Maria already mentioned, we are located in the other southwest of Germany. It's a mid-sized town there, and we share these borders to France and Switzerland, but maybe most important, we are like a center for this hinterland. Maybe you know the mountains of the Black Forest, which is like a more like a most rural area. So our house is existing now for 34 years. It was founded in 1986, and we are housed in an old mansion. And this is like an ensemble of like a main building and 2 side buildings. Before 86, it was like a youth center, and after closing this youth center, there was like 4 founding figures, mostly women, who said they need a meeting point and a place where alternative culture can exist. A meeting point and also a place for groups enacting civil society interests, which are like meeting in our seminar rooms right now, but already did in the old building parts. Now you see here our hall where everything began, and we are now using as a stage for music, concert, and mainly comedy right now. So everything evolved from 1986 up to now in different stages, of course. As it began in this like small side building, which is now our big hall, it was like a cafe with a very small stage, and yeah, alternative culture. This could be like from pottery, but also like local bands, and we do call it cabaret here in Germany. Mostly it's called in English comedy, which is like a political or a critical approach to politics, and but having a laughter over it, like maybe like satire. Okay, in mid-90s to the 2010s, with the extension of the building and getting more and more space or structure, there were a lot of theater groups, youth and children's theater groups housed in this building, and also a gastronomy, or like, yeah, a pub was installed, which also offered food, and this rent out business became more professionalized. And there is like then a break in the mid 2010s, when we then came up. The team managing it now is like was installed like 2017 after bankruptcy appeared. So everybody knows, or some people know about this iron cage thing, you know, like you're running a place and then after 20 years maybe you are at the end of your ideas, and then we came and we had to consolidate everything. And now we have those main 3 pillars, which is built on, still there is this pub with our beer garden. And this is like the main meeting point for everybody in the city who is interested in open society or in exchange with others. We are renting it out. The rent out business had also to be professionalized in that kind of that we are having now full-time employees, and so you can all the time reach out to us via email and of course via telephone, and so we are trying really to optimize the space. So I would say 10 to 12 groups can meet a week in, or are meeting in a week in our seminar rooms. Also, the programmation had to be optimized or to reconsolidated. So this orientation to theater or performative arts was minimized. I would say before it was like 30 to 50%, and now it's just 5%. The reason is because theater is very costly and is not bringing that much revenue in. So, and now we are very much on this comedy, political satire thing, and maybe there's like this cost monitoring behind it. Also, we had this music. Music was neglected here a little bit, and there is not that many stages where you can hear music. What we are like trying to emphasizing is that we're having this mix of regional, local artists, and we're really checking for quality, national artists, and what we added on is like this international artists level. Of course, we had to build up relations to agencies which can mediate us those artists, and also there is like our, let's say, accessibility and our picking out the good ones, the quality check also. Yeah, so we are working with professional, semi-professional, and enthusiasts. Our first level of interest is the quality, and maybe also this what is it can give back or in kind of inspiration to our audiences, and also this is like connecting this periphery status to centers or like to other parts of Germany or other countries. Of course, we're having also cooperations where we can create knowledge and bring in some new ideas to people who are interested in. Yes, here are some impressions of how it looks, everything, so you see there is like a mix of events, and in the right side on the screen you see impressions from what is happening in the house with our groups. Maybe in the groups are 100 individuals which are regularly coming to our house and having high bonds, so very tight relations with and identification with our house. And so by that we we're having already like a core audience, and of course the programmation of the stage is bringing in some people which having arm length ties relation to us. So a little bit of my point is, of course, we are talking about periphery, but I think, and this should come up in the question and answer, Maisie, it's not just about being in the periphery, but it's about building structures and really networks you're working with. So if you're having a network and being a hub for relations, so you are not anymore in the periphery, but you are a hub, you are a center for yourself and connecting with other centers. Maybe something what we could realize in our work in this house here. So, of course, creating structures. Now, this is like a short overview of our structures. Nearly 24 people or 25 people are involved constantly in working out our resource we have. And yeah, and the funding is clear, like this tradition of social culture in Germany and creating trusts of the officials to social culture is of course an advantage, which maybe not be in other countries. So that's the result. 90% of the money we are having or we are working with, and our salaries are paid, are coming from the public hand. So if you have any questions, I'm really waiting for them, and I'm excited which they will be. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Matti, to take us through the history of the place and also the context where you work today with the organization and the funding. I think it's important because it affects the way we work, and as also Rania mentioned earlier, this is a very important part of how we use culture for community work and so on. And I bet we're going to have some questions on that later as well. I would like to invite now our last speaker for today, who is from Albania. Let me introduce you to Diana Malaj. She's one of the founders of the activist group ATA, whose priority is the fight for the use of cultural spaces in the city of Kamsa, just outside the capital of Albania. Through activism with the ATA group, she has been able to explore various disciplines such as law, journalism, anthropology, art, literature, all of which are ways to reconceive the dimension of social movements and activism. She will share information on the context and the function of ATA's activities. So Diana, we're looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you very much, Maria Luisa. And I will begin shortly with short information about Kamsa, which I think it's necessary for all of us to know better what it means to be a city, not a rural zone, but which has been considered as the periphery. Kamsa has gained its status as a city in 1996, and before it was considered as one of the villages of Tirana, the capital city of Albania. But during the communism regime, Kamsa was one of the most important agricultural cooperatives in Tirana. And after the fall of communism regime, the city was populated by thousands of inhabitants who were coming from, especially from the north of Albania, but in general from all the cities of Albania. This exactly unplanned and sudden arrival in this suburban area and informal area, and their attempt to build new houses and create for themselves and for their children a safe shelter and a house without going in this kind of process, legal process of housing, landing, and properties rights, give them the identity. But people from Kamsa at the beginning were subject of harsh stereotypes, as you might imagine, especially from the politics in Albania. They were usually considered as wild people coming from the mountains without culture and violating the land properties and occupying the land. And Today, in fact, Kamsa has changed. It's one of the biggest cities in Albania, is the 5th one, and with youngest age in Albania, and with the most rapid demographic development, and with the highest density in the country. But due to this massive internal migration over the years 2000, I'm sorry, Kamsa faced major challenges in managing these new urban realities. I must say that the focus of the political leaders of the municipality, but also in the central government, was exactly only on infrastructure, how to build roads, for example, and they neglected for those 30 years social cultural policies for all the people of Kamsa. And this has led to the collapse of public property, community life, and cultural life. And especially the metaphor of this is the mismanagement of the only cultural institution that we have in the city, which is the Palace of Culture, and which has turned into a place where politicians can make their political reunions, but they do not give to the people the possibility to go into the theater. They do not give to the city the possibility to have a public library or a cinema. And in this moment, the youngsters of the city decided to create the ATA group, or translated in English, which means them or the others. The best way to leave a city for us is, and it was, and it's now, how to unlearn the way where how we were taught to leave the city, or the city taught us to leave it. For example, Kamsa. If we would let Kamsa to taught us how to live it, for sure, all the youngsters of this city, as all the cities of Albania, now would have been migrants in different European countries. And our parents also, in our small families, they taught us to care only for our house and our fence of our house, and outside it, where it's not your job, it's not your duty, so you must be careful only for your private thing. And being engaged with our group, with ATA group, which is an informal group, helped us to understand and to reveal the importance of public space, being with each other day by day, and giving to the city through our commitment, what is lacking the most, our community life, our cultural life. And I might say that we or ATA, or them, as a self-established group of activists, we have since 2014 that we were created, and we now have a community center with the same name in Kamsa, and in which we organize social and cultural activities by exploring different disciplines such as relational art, theater of the oppressed, experimental theater in the roads, journalism, anthropology, and law. And for us, it's very important to work and fight for human rights and cultural and political rights by expressing ourselves through creative actions, and including here also cultural initiatives. I must say that one of the challenges that we have faced during these years was our informal being, because we are an informal troupe, and we are independent, and we do not have the possibility to cooperate with the municipality because of our strongly critiques that we made toward them, and also to the central power. And for this, we have faced so many problems with local power, police, individual closely related to the power, who have tried all the ways to stop our activity. But I must say that we have tried also to find out how to create and be creative, and to act and react against also this kind of attempts from the power. This time it wasn't a quiet time and easy time for all of us, especially for the cultural sector. But I must say that in Albania, we had different scenes of cultural spaces. For example, I must say here that meanwhile in the center of Tirana, the capital city, which where we see organized cultural activities in the Prime Minister building in Albania, outside his yard. In the periphery, such as Kamsa, it's very difficult to organize a theater performance, for example, just because because you might see a couple of or a police which they justify their presence there because they said to stop your theater performance just because it's a pandemic time. And in these moments where our government had ruined our national theater, and our local government has no idea how to support cultural initiatives and other institutions that serve to the government and not to the people, the only way to act, which is remind to us, is to operate more as an anarchist group. It's not a choice, but it's a duty in these times exactly in this critical politics situation. And I must say that for sure we will have the possibility to have other questions and to go deep in our activities. But I hope that I gave you a short information what we are doing and what we are going to do in Kamsa, and hope that you enjoyed, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Diana, for sharing not only the reality of how it works right now with trying to create cultural performance, but also your path as I guess it's a group of younger people, right? Your path to achieving this in the local community and changing perceptions. I would like now to move forward to the questions and remind you that you as an audience can participate in the conversation by sharing your questions or comments through the Slido app. You can download the app either through the Google Play or the App Store, and the event code for today's talk is #13006. And you can also participate through the Facebook live stream. So going over to the Q&A session, I think I have so many different points for all of you, because there are disparities, of course, between the different countries and ways of working. So one thing that came up, I believe, was how to check if what we do as organizations is received well by the people or received well by policy or governments and so on. And I would like to start with a question for Janina. You mentioned that measuring, you said, is important, because it affects, how you take decisions, but it shouldn't be a rule. So how do you check, if what you've done with the 60 villages, for example, I saw this number in your presentation, how do you check it is successful? I mean, how do you take decisions to move on with other rural areas?
Numbers are very important. I don't say that we don't work with numbers. Just similarly to Rania, I'm saying that we really need a different approach to measure activities that are not originally made for the business ways of measuring. So the measures that now very often in the cultural management world, we try to implement language that is for a totally different context, I think it's not appropriate, just because I saw it. We work with sociological agencies that are monitoring our work independently, but what they do and what we ask them to do is beyond the quantitative measures and the numbers, which are of course also important, but really to try to go also on the qualitative side. And then there is a much bigger thing, I would say, which is not, it's not possible always to measure it, but we see it in the projects that come out of what we do. For example, how would you measure? We have an exhibition which is catching the love stories between elderly couples in the rural areas. How we measure that? I mean, it's something that you experience, something that you see, something new that you learn. And I mean, we are exploring of still, and it's really interesting to me. But I just want to emphasize again that we need a new language, as Rani said again, attaching to what she said. But we really need a new language, not because of the language, but because of the new or different understanding. of how we perceive culture and how we talk about culture, and afterwards what we want about culture in the cultural sector, what we would like to achieve and advocate for.
Thank you. I think there is also a common kind of denominator in all your presentations when we talk about periphery general and how it is perceived. And I think this is a common question for everyone. And I would like to start first with Matti, because you explained to us and you showed us on the map where you're located in the map, and that you are in the borders with 2 other countries. So my question is, if you are working, you mentioned also that you're bringing in talent from other areas of Germany and internationally. So how does it work for you? How do you do this connection of going in and out of your zone, let's say, and keeping your audience happy? Because you mentioned a number of 100 people, if I'm right, of a fan club almost.
Yeah, the whole 100 people I mentioned, they are mostly organizing groups, but also constantly visiting us. And of course, let's say we are the first point if they want to consume culture actually and not produce it, because they are also producers in some kind in their groups. But if they want to consume culture, they have a look in our programmation. So and like I said, this place is already established. So a lot of artists, so the semi-professionals are writing to us and asking if they can come to our stage, and then we're doing a quality check. Of course, there is no measure of quality, but it's more our experience that we have, and so we are deciding like if we want to do it or not. So of course, we are cultural professionals, and we are also having a look what is happening everywhere else. So in the end, we have to decide individually if we want to represent that or not. So there is like this thing. International artists also writing us, but mostly we are reaching out to agencies. So there is like a network of agencies, or maybe not a network, but there are different level of professional agencies where we have a look. And to find those, we are also having a look in other cultural centers around Germany, or even in Switzerland and in France. We are checking and having a look, do they have the same spatial aspects or the capacity of the venue, okay? If they have, like, is this a space for 100 people, so we can say that they might have the same costs, and the fees of the bands could be the same. So we're writing those agencies representing those artists and ask if we wouldn't fit into a tour plan or something. So this is that for the stage that we have. And of course, this cooperation with the groups, also there are coming new individuals and asking us if they can cooperate with us. And also there we have to check what is the goal of this activity, or can we represent it as a house, of course, because people see the house, they are not seeing this cooperation partner actually. So that's maybe our secret.
Okay, yes, it is actually interesting to see, because we have, as I mentioned before, a very varied group of sorry, not a group, but presentations today. And I would like to move from this secret you just mentioned, Matti, to Greg, and ask you, what is it that made you engage the locals? Because you mentioned that it is that the community, the power is in the community. And as also Rania said, we give the tools, and then there's a co-creation process. But you didn't tell us very much. So I'm very intrigued to know what is your magical solution mix, in a way, to make the people get on board and believe that what you give them as a tool is going to solve their plastic bottle problem, for example?
Yeah. Well, I don't think it is magical. In fact, it's not a magic solution, or anything like this. It's actually sharing or seeing things from the same point of view. We all know the issue, the problem here with the non-drinkable water and the plastic waste. Some of us, we are more sensitive about the environment, some not. However, it is seeing the same problem, sharing the need to change this, and then I actually realized that I tend to, or I prefer to approach things in a more, in an easier way. Meaning that, okay, we all know, we started, I must say that we started 8 of us, the Nisyrio project. Today we are 17 founders, founding members, and 50 active members. And as I said, already half of the society, one way or the other, has been part of our activities. Creating the mechanism, I would say it's the tool to have available, and then it's actually telling those people that they share the same point of view, or talk with them actually. How do you think we shall do it? And I'm referring to the practical things. Okay, we have these machines here. These are the tools we are providing. Let's get together to upcycle. How? Which day? Which hour? What do you think we should do? Is it better to go to the beach first, or have a workshop after, etc.? So actually, you give the people the opportunity to express themselves and express ideas and thoughts that maybe have had, but they were not able to share. So I think it is mainly talking to the people and sharing thoughts and approaches, since that we are sharing the same point of view.
Thank you. This is really interesting because you actually make it look like a very natural and simple process, but actually I'm sure there is quite a lot of work behind this sometimes, and that brings me to what Diana has explained in how grouping, if I got this right, in how bringing together the people of the community and relearning how to live in the community also sounds like a very simple thing. Okay, so we were using our buildings, our courtyards, or whatever space you have in one way. So now let's talk about it and maybe we can use it in a different way. Is it that simple, Diana?
No, it's not for sure. Because you have to pass through from your private interest to the public, and you have to sacrifice all your, or at least most of your private interest in order to do something good for the public one. And that's why it's very important to say that we to know the context from we are. Because I wanted to say that this unlearning talks, it is related with the unlearning process in which we get through to learn how to inhabit a city. It's not the same thing how to live in a city, because if you inhabit a city and you inhabit it in all his dimensions, it means that you can, it means that you must be in a community. You must feel the community, and you must feel the life together. That's the city for us. And that's why we created this center, and that's why we have developed so many cultural activities. But I must emphasize that our cultural and social cultural activities, they are not there to give only aesthetical pleasure to the citizens. Absolutely not. It's our language, how to fight for human rights, for political rights, for cultural rights, for this city, which has been considered for all as the periphery, as something small, as something distant. And that's why we have this name. Ata, it means, it's a pronoun name, so them. So when you talk for them, they are in distance, and you must notice that they are not present in the moment when you are talking. So it's not easy to be an activist in Kamsa, but it's the only way how to live in a city, being an activist.
Okay, thanks for sharing this. I have started receiving some questions for you, for all of you, and I would like to organize this. So when you mentioned Diana, the activist, and that brings me to what Rania just briefly explained to us about approaching the cultural work with different metrics. So this sounds, I mean, if we would go today, all of us, to a foundation or a local authority and say, we want some funding, but we do not accept the way you measure our work. We are going to set a new, establish a new way of sharing, you know, the impact and so on. How could that work? I mean, do you already have developed some, or give us an example, or developed some ideas around this in your work, Rania?
Maybe it's a paradox, but maybe we could, for example, ask the theater producers in Greece, for example, that they fund a theater production and they know for sure that they will never take their money back. And I think the interesting point in this is that this idea of the intrinsic and the instrumental value comes from a financial analyst, meaning that it's not, you know, the crazy artists that don't want to put measures in the work, but the market itself tells us that in this battle we are going to lose, because the arts and culture, it's not a cheap product. It's not something that you can, you know, put, let's say, the worst quality cultural ingredients and then you have a very cheap product. In terms of market, it's not cheap. So we should really find another way to make our narration, because otherwise there is this danger that we will always lose, for example. And I think that for storytelling, which might sound a bit romantic, but most of us, I think, implement in our cultural projects, it's something that we shouldn't, it's something that we should invest on, meaning that I think that the system that exists right now tries to make us measure and live in the most logical way, you know, have all these metrics that are so clear, there is nothing to question about. But if we look around us, I wouldn't say that, you know, logic is around us. I mean, we are human beings. It's not only about robotic decisions and making the best decisions. I mean, think about our everyday life and how many times we know that we're making a wrong choice, but either way we want to make it. So I wouldn't say that there is one way to do it, but for sure, I think that the arts is what keeps us alive, keeps us dreaming, keeps us being innovative, keeps us being open-minded. And these are values which, in my opinion, are not even worth measuring. I mean, you cannot measure how happy you are when you meet a friend. You cannot measure how many tears come from your eyes when you see a theater production that touches you. And nobody wants to measure this. So, of course, I'm not saying to move on to a model, you know, where it will be all flowers and very romantic stuff and trying to convince a funder. But I think that it should be more human-centered, all this discussion, and not result-driven only when it comes to the arts.
Okay, I think there is a balance that we must strike, and also there is an issue with you know, how we're being activists every day, as Diana mentioned, in the way we perform and the way we exist as professionals, because the setting is different. And I have a question here I have actually two questions. One that is for all of our speakers, and one that is similar for Janina. The question for Janina is, what is the radical change for you and the Ideas Factory? So it goes back again to seeing this difference. And maybe you can tell us briefly, what is it? What is the radical change you hope to see or you already see? Beyond, as Rania said, the happiness of seeing elderly people and younger artists exchanging.
Okay, I will answer because I see like two directions of this questions. One is, what is a radical according to us at the Ideas Factory? I think it's not, exchanging might not look very radical on the first side, but actually what happens after is quite radical, could be right radical. To me, one of the most something that I'm really passionate now about is opening the closed schools in the villages. And I think that's radical, really, really radical for many reasons. Because the moment, first, it's a massive collective trauma, because the efforts that were put by people voluntarily to build those schools is now taken away by central power, right? I mean, most of those schools in Bulgaria, at least, were built really on a voluntary basis by the people, for the people. They were searching for teachers, paying the teachers in a very autonomous way. And then these schools are closed because of lack of economical symmetry, let's say. Right now, if we manage to rethink the school spaces and we manage first to give back some life in there, and we manage to reopen the imagination so that we start imagining these schools full again, but maybe with different ways, different things that happen inside. But it means that it opens the path for young families and children to go to the villages. And it is a totally, I would say, this is a new page. If we manage to open schools in a new way, and it attracts new inhabitants of villages that are totally depopulated, this is something that I would like to work on. In the next year, we will have an advocacy campaign called Right to the Village, which is focusing exactly on all these rights that are geographically determined, lack of access to culture, to education, to healthcare, which are to be seen in Bulgaria and some other Balkan countries like North Macedonia and south of Serbia. So radical is actually something very small and something really simple, but doing it first with your hands, being there, be present, that's really the radical thing, being present and where you want to be present and be fully present. And then systemic change for me comes really from education. So it's education is part of culture, because culture is not only arts, it's all of our lifestyles and how we live.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing also your next steps. It is important to see in the long run what the plan is, and you mentioned systemic change, which is really important. Before I move on to this generic question for all of you, I would like to ask Matti, you mentioned briefly in your presentation that people identify with the house, so with the organization. And this is a subject that I find very interesting, because in everything we do in the sociocultural sector, and I think all of the speakers today mentioned this, is that we need to connect with people. We need to have trust. We need to speak to their hearts, as Rania and Janina said, and as Greg said, we need to find the simple way of speaking and being there, as Diana mentioned. You have to be from the same area, you have to understand. So what is it you believe that after so many years and with the change, makes people still identify with the house? New people or, older residents?
Yeah, it's both actually. Yeah, they are like a big part of those who coming in regularly, which know this place for 34 years since it was founded, even longer. Yeah, one of our technicians, he came here when he was 15 years old in the 70s when it was a youth center. So so it's like his second living room. Yeah. So what we try to do here is also to be this connection to not the other centers, but to the outer world, actually. So something is happening here, which is giving you like a TV, okay? You see what is happening in other cities or what is culturally happening. So you can take inspiration from here. So also a very, very, very much of those who move into Lörrach, they are looking for friends or for community, actually, and we are one of the only spaces here in Lörrach where you can go regularly, non-commercially, actually, and meet other people. So, and this is also an aspect maybe of a cultural center in the periphery. You have this oligopoly or monopoly. So you are one of the few places where people can come to and develop ideas, take inspiration, can consume and prosume. Yeah, come back and say, okay, I've seen this with you. I have also an idea. Can we cooperate in that sense? Of course, you have like everybody, or like it was mentioned before, like education is a thing. People who are coming here, they have seen mostly other places. So by education, they are coming around Germany or like moving here to this place because they find work. Of course, you have to have a certain kind of education. So it's not an exclusive place, but the background of the people is making them to search people which are like on the same level in some kind. And I'm not talking about elites, not in any way. So they are like, I don't know, highly, how to say, have some skills which are needed here, so they come here too and work in Switzerland but living in Germany, and they're looking for others. So maybe this is the first place people moving into Lörrach are visiting and are very happy to find others with another with the same history, with the same background. So, and this, yeah, okay. That's it actually.
This is really interesting because this a kind of identification. I think Jana, you mentioned some aspects of it, that people have some characteristics or feel some criticism from central government or other people. You actually said harsh stereotypes. So. So how do you see, Diana, the change in this feeling maybe of the locals?
Well, I think it takes time to make such a change, but giving this space and this youth community center to the citizens of Kamsa, it makes feel them that we had another identity, in fact, and which is one which we are building on. It's not given by the others, but we have to build on it, and it's a long process. And for sure, we had made so many cultural and social activities in our center, but inviting artists and activists from the center, not from the periphery. And our invitation was sent to them with propose to see how the periphery works. So also we have a link or a bridge to communicate. We have created a link or a bridge to communicate with others who are active in central life, so in the center, not anymore in the periphery. And our collaboration, especially with artists who work in Tirana, for example, or international artists who work in other cities of Europe or in other countries, helped us to give another opinion, another face to our city and to us also, because with their language, they tried to, let's say, give another face to Kamsa. So we have been in communication with the people from Kamsa and with the people from outside Kamsa. That's that's the way we try to change and the public opinion about the citizens from this city.
Okay, so it is about going in and out, if I got this right. Yeah. So that brings me to another question, maybe for Greg. You mentioned that the community is quite small. Yet I was wondering, because we're hearing now and then about environmental projects, if you have collaborated with some other environmental groups in other islands, and also if you have thoughts to go beyond, you know, and work maybe with neighboring areas in Turkey or so on. So how do you go also outside the island and then back in, Greg?
Well, we have not collaborated yet with other groups outside the island or Greece. However, we are very much willing to, once we feel confident enough, because the project is really young. And once we manage to create the mechanism that flows, everything works perfectly, we will be very happy. In fact, in the area, I must say, at least for the Greek islands, the neighboring islands of Nisyros, there isn't such a project. There isn't, I mean, it's only in the northern part of Dodecanese, which is doing really well with recycling and upcycling. However, this is a municipality thing. Still, we could collaborate perfectly. But there aren't much projects around us. I assume that it's the same in Bodrum, which is the neighboring part of Turkey. However, we're very much willing to, once we get there ourselves.
Yes, I know this is, as Janina said, it is about maturing and, you know, having the experience, you know, being there. I think Janina mentioned this, being there is very important. And that leads me to another question for Raina. You mentioned work in rural areas. So what is your next step? I mean, what is, you mentioned the project Actes, which is about on a small island with children. So what are your next moves or plans in order to continue working with this process?
The idea is that we're implementing the pilot of this project this year with the support of the Ministry of Culture. But we have already started a conversation with big private institutions and organizations who would want to bring their collaborated artists to such residencies. So for us, the idea is that we give, in a way, the structure of the project. We give the connection with the municipalities and the islands, and then there is an artistic organization, and most preferably an independent artistic organization who is providing, let's say, the artists. And this model, in a way, continues the previous conversation about how we can preserve art independently. So we, as cultural managers, we create the frame, and we, in a way, take the most boring work of, you know, setting up the project, of the contracts, of the payments. But the core of the project, which is the artistic process that the children and the artists are engaged to, is in a way preserved by the organization who comes and collaborates with us and provides the artist, and it's an independent organization, so we don't enter in the content, let's say, of the artist. So we have an organization who is responsible for that, and that only, and then we come and we offer both to this organization and the local communities the frame to work together without caring, let's say, about the management details. So the idea is that next year we move to other isolated islands as well. There is a thought of approaching some isolated villages in Crete, which is not an isolated island, but Crete, for those of you who don't know, is the biggest island in Greece, but it has many isolated, let's say, villages. So this would be our next step, to try to engage more areas and more independent artistic organization in the process.
Okay, thank you. I think this brings back the discussion to what do we refer to as periphery or isolated space or the feeling, because Jana mentioned to us that it is just outside the capital, Tirana, but yet we see signs that we can see in other smaller areas or segregated or so on. Now, there is this question in the Slido app about overcoming the lack of support from local authorities. And the question in particular is about, is when the interventions are interrelated with only one place. So this is something to consider, I guess, differently for a project like the residency in Bulgaria, where you go to different places and differently for Matti and Diana and Greg, where you have one location for the moment. So maybe we can do this turn for all of you to have your opinion or experience with the local authorities. Of course, the experience between Germany and Albania is very different, and between Greece and Bulgaria might be similar. But I think our audience would like to know, how do you overcome the lack of support? And then, of course, in Germany, it's a bit different, as you explained to us, Matti. But I am sure there are some lessons learned from your experience, your long experience with working with local authorities. So, may I start with Janina about this?
It's been a long journey for us understanding our relation with local authorities. First of all, for example, we are based in Sofia, right? And we never worked with Sofia municipality because it was always so hard. And even the one project that we did here was destroyed by one of their departments because the other department didn't know it was allowed by another department. And then this was the point we said, no, we don't want to invest our energy here in that city. It's anyway so much of a cultural content here. We are out. So since then, Sofia lost us, but then it's an amazing and big shift to see what is happening in the smaller cities where there is no, not a big offers, there are no offers or no cultural operators or no, let's say, just not this muscle of, I don't like the word consuming art, but just the being there, like attending art events, and the muscle is being destroyed with because of lack of culture, access to culture. So in smaller cities, we're received in a totally different way. We are much more needed there in smaller cities, smaller municipalities, rural areas, and I think with the year going. Of course, there is always skepticism as well, but there is, I think, an ability or a skill you develop after quite a while when you can understand if you could really work in that municipality or not. We had, unfortunately, quite a bad experience with the European Capital of Culture, for example, Plovdiv, which was another thing when we had to, we wanted to collaborate and we were involved in the very beginning of the application, but then there was this lack of understanding of the core of our work, not only ours, I would say also many other organizations. And it brings us back to the question, how we build infrastructure for non-formal culture and non-formal culture to be connected, represented, understood, perceived by very formal institutions. I don't have the answer yet. Until now, the only thing I can advise you is just really be outspoken about your rights and the things that you really deserve as an organization, as a sector. And I think this is the path towards the situation of Matti, where 90% of the funding is municipal and state given. Absolutely incredible for this situation here that we have now. I have to say that I have a dream that the tax, when we pay taxes, there is like a box where that asks us, what would you like your taxes to go for? For the moment, right now, my taxes are going for new pathways and highways and things that I'm not really interested in. And it would be amazing if I just, there's so many technical solutions. Why don't we just check this box and say what we would like to have more with our money? And this is also the point where I think the whole idea, which I was a very, very big fan of, social entrepreneurship and so on, for me, this dialogue stops in the moment where we have the taxes solution, because these are our taxes and our money, and it doesn't have to be delegated to, I think, to small actors when it's up to really a bigger strategy and also participatory solutions. So I don't know if I answered that question, but it's a big question, and this is where we are.
It is about, of course, you explained to us and shared your experience with public authorities, different ones in the country. It's really interesting. May I also ask Rania, who also has a diverse collaboration with various locations in Greece, your experience as well, based in Athens, but working also in the periphery?
Yes. Yanina, I really go for what you're saying. For us here in Greece right now, I have to say that our taxes go to military services, which is even worse. So I could share many funny stories with local authorities, working with them. But I think that, like Yanina's work and ours, that we're not based in the rural area, and we're not in a way forced to have a dialogue with a specific municipality. We have the luxury in a way to choose, meaning that we try to choose small communities that are ready also for such projects. Because when we were younger and maybe more naive when we started, we were really facing problems because, for example, that with our start project, Cassis, in a small island in Aegina, there was no support at all. And the local mayor was willing to spend 30,000 euros in beach volley court, which was considered for him to be a cultural activity, but didn't want to spend 1,000 euros for a yearly cost about a construction that was made from children, that they recreated an urban space that was abandoned. So if you don't have the ground to do things, you don't do things. I know that Diana is another case because she lives in a city and she wants the best for her city, as in a way I advocate, or I try to advocate for Athens. But in my cultural work as a professional, I said in a way that I want to have this luxury to choose. So for example, now that we work with Aistratis, Aistratis has a mayor. She's the youngest woman as a mayor in Greece. And then boom, it's a very small island. It's not as if they're rich or something like that, but they have the will. They understand the value that you give, and they find a way to do it. And I know that it might sound a bit elitistic, but if it's not in the political agenda of someone, it is not. I'm not saying that there is nothing we can do, but we really need to consider where is the space and the opportunity to have an impactful project and where there is no such space. So this is what I would say. But I understand that, for example, in Diana's or Greg's or Matti's situation it's very different. So I'm really eager to see your point of view on that. Thank you.
Okay, I think I will continue also with the experience by Greg, and then move to Diana and Matti, because it is a small island. Like Istrat is not as small as that, but maybe you can share with us your experience with the local authorities before we go outside of Greece.
I admit that after all these years, meaning I'm referring to Sterna project that I initiated back in 2014. And it was the second year of the project, 2015, that I asked the support of the local authorities. Since then, and for Nisyrio now, the new project, we are collaborating with the local authorities. But I admit I keep asking myself, and I ask the rest of the team, shall we keep doing this? It's not always pleasant, and it requires extra energy and extra strategy in order to get the support. But the most important thing is that to me and to the rest of the team is actually making them part of what we are doing, engaging them. On the other side, at the end of the day, although sometimes it's not very easy, it can be harder, easier, etc. It's like this relationships. At the end of the day, I must admit that it is actually quite supportive. Mm-hmm. However, as Rania said, it is really nice to have the luxury in her case, and it would be lovely to have all of us to be able to decide whether you are or not going to ask for the support of the authorities, of the local authorities.
Yeah, I understand. Of course, it is a challenge, and that leads us to Diana, of course, who has explained to us a rather difficult or challenging sometimes situation with the authorities. Maybe you can focus, Diana, and sharing your experience with municipal authorities at this stage, so that we keep a kind of parallel example with the others.
Yes. We as an activist group, let's say we choose to be in a cold war with the authorities. As I mentioned before, for example, I'm going to give a short example in my city, which is the metaphor of all our fights. We had the greatest palace of culture in Albania, talking about its infrastructure. And the mayors of the city has given the permission to build a local bar there. We have there 2 private banks, and also so many spaces for officials from the municipality. And instead of using this space for the cinema, for the theater, for public library, we have this capitalist occupiers of our place. So that's why we are obliged to be in a cold war with these authorities, because we want to fight the corruption in public spaces, and we want to make sure that they are transparent and they are under control by its citizens. And that's why we have it's very clear for us. We have never asked to them support or economic or financial support, because this leads, in Albania at least, a problematic to be independent. So if you get the financial support from the municipality, maybe you are going to be in trouble with the content of your action, with the content and of your activity, and it is understood as you want to make a good PR to the municipal and the local authorities. That's why it's very clear for us, because we have to fight the corruption and all that the wrong things that they are doing in our public life. That's why we have only requests to them to be transparent, to have them under control, and to protest in different ways, through theater, through performances in the streets, to protest against them, and to make our voice loud for our interests and for the interests of people from Kansa. So that's why it's very important for us to save our independence from the local authorities, not because we want to be, because we are an informal group and we face so many problems. We are even an NGO, and it's easier for an NGO to apply for different projects, but we are an informal group, so we need, as all the groups, to have financial support. But for us, it's very important in this way, even if we face problems.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Diana. It's really interesting to hear your approach on this, and maybe it can teach us all, some ideas. As Greg said, shall we keep on asking for this support? Shall we collaborate? Wondering about our activities. Matti, we arrive at your experience, as Janina said, it's really different from what we have in other projects and organizations. So can you share with us maybe, some challenges or some issues with authorities that affect you in your work? Actually, it doesn't have to be generally negative, but how it affects in the relation with the authorities.
I think on a small scale, we have all those fights also with authority. Of course, we have this big advantage that the big fights of legitimization and the good for the society which we produce with our work has already been fought. But of course, there are different approaches by different levels to give limits to culture. So there was like this, I think 4 years ago, there was like this extremist paragraph or law set up, which said that no public funded institution is allowed to work with extremists but the definition was not that clear. Or now, now recently, the financial administrations, or not administrations, the Finanzamt, this is like they are checking the taxes actually, and they're giving you the status if you are like public or for the good of the public working. So, and this status is decided by them. So it's not even, and so like anti-fascist societies were taking off their status, which is like threatening for some societies. So because then you have to pay real taxes actually. If you have this like working for public goods, you're not paying that much taxes. So of course there are always those fights coming up. We have this disadvantage, of course, that we have like lobbies, or like the lobby of Bundesvereinigung sociocultureller Zentren, which is also collaborating for START, or is managing START here in Germany, that they are giving information and counseling in those cases. And with that, they have the connection directly to the political levels. So there are happening those fights. Or right now, this nationalistic parties like the AfD, they are really trying to put obstacles in the way of our work, or try to fight the legitimization that we have fought for and won the battle. So it will never stop, I think, because what we are doing is actually not working on a tradition of culture on this high culture, which is already legitimized and written in books and is institutionalized in that kind of production chains from university up to own academies and so on. What we are doing is really working with people and their ideas, and looking for contemporary ideas of what culture is. And I think that's what everybody of you is working on. trying to broaden this perception of what culture can be and what the results for the people can be, and that also people producing culture and all that is its own worth. So it's not that there must be a center of production, but it's decentralized, and by that we are creating something beautiful, actually. So this decentralization of culture is giving the richness and giving a niche for everybody to live in and to express oneself, and by that creating relations to a reality formed by themselves. So, and I think that the politicians have to learn, actually.
I think you're totally right, and I saw everyone kind of nodding their heads, because it is about being there and being recognized as representing people's needs and working towards the well-being at the end of the day of societies. I really can't thank you enough, all of you, as speakers today. We've had a very rich conversation and a very long-lasting one compared to the other talks we've had since the beginning. I would like to thank you. It has been a real pleasure having you on this virtual stage, and I really look forward to staying in touch and collaborating in common projects. We have a lot of things to share. Thank you for now.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I would also like to thank, of course, the production team behind this online event and the viewers. Thank you for being with us today. See you all in our next session tomorrow, Thursday, September 24th at 1800 hours European Eastern Time, with a 6th talk on transformation of the media landscape in the region. It's quite promising with the speakers we have. If what you heard today sounds, of course, interesting, I invite you to share your story by registering at our events page at startgreece.net website. And until then, I hope you stay safe and join us on social media.